Yes. That's awesome.
What
I like that. It's just one moment, please.
Nice. You good?
Yeah. All right. How's it going, everybody? Hello, and welcome to our third meeting of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club. I'm Tobias Berblinger, an industrial designer and musician, and this is my associate, Will Acoma. He is an accomplished fabricator and machinist. Together, we have a number of curious and exciting topics to share with you.
Our series highlights an eclectic group of speakers, experiences, and workshops across a broad range of subjects dictated by our curatorial interests in the areas of culture, design, science, technology, art, fabrication, and design techniques, and lost common knowledge. Today's presentation will be video streamed on Core 77 blog alongside any presentation materials the speaker chooses to bring. Following the lecture period, there will be a question and answer session as time allows.
As attendees of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club, you are now all members, provided you adhere to our philosophy. Ex curiositas scientia.
We pledge to learn without prejudice in pursuit of our mutual goal, perpetual noviceship. We admit that it is impossible to know everything about anything, and thus we remain perpetually curious and perpetually novice.
This is our flag and our mascot, Franklin. The lightning bolt represents the receipt of knowledge, the enlightenment of illumination, the resonance of truths understood. It awakens and excites us and makes us hungry for more. With that, we are pleased to announce our speaker, Erin Gardner. She creates conceptual jewelry. She is a recipient of the 2010 Individual Artist Fellowship Award from the Oregon Arts Commission.
All right. I'm glad that I know most people out there, so I don't have to feel too nervous. As he said, my name's Erin Gardner, and I approach jewelry as both the format and, more importantly to me, the subject of my work. And I'm going to divide this lecture into kind of two components. The first section I'll focus on my craft-based practice, and then I'll switch into more design-based practice. And as this lecture series is dedicated to perpetual noviceship, I'm going to attempt to talk about a couple processes that are relevant to my work. And during those times, if you have questions, just stop me, because I probably won't pause for them. So this is the launching point of what I now consider my portfolio. And these are some ring studies that I did in my fourth year of college. I studied jewelry at the University of Oregon, and during this time I was kind of working with this ring that was given to me by my boyfriend when I was 16, and it was a promise ring. We decided we were going to get married and be together forever. It's kind of sweet to talk about now, but later on I realized that maybe 16 is a little too young to be making promises. And so this was I had ended this relationship a couple years before this, and I was kind of thinking about this ring holding sentiment and all of my emotions and memories attached to it, and that's really, I was thinking about my personal narrative and it as a souvenir. And so these were a study that kind of led into this brooch diptych, which it was two brooches, and it was again about that same type of story. And this also deals with that ring. I had wore the ring for 5 years, and when I finally took it off, I would have these phantom pains up to a year and a half later, where I was like, where's my ring? It was just this object that had become so much part of my body that even though I had consciously taken it off, I would still kind of long for it. So I made these rings that kind of encompass the space that the ring that I used to wear once occupied. And this is the last piece dealing with that ring and my own personal sentiment. During that time, I had started dating this man this boy when I was 15, big difference, 15, and we were together for 6.5 years, and so I had made this transition into adulthood not knowing, and not being like a single person, only thinking of myself as kind of part of a unit. And so at this point I was trying to think of a way to like incorporate everyone who had kind of helped me in this transition, and I made these impression brooches of the ring and gifted them to 24 people who kind of helped me, discover myself. Okay. And so at some point when I was working with my ring and making all these cast copies of it, I had 2 different people come by my bench and say to me, "I have that ring," or "My mom has that ring." And I was so obsessed with this ring as like my personal story that I didn't consider the fact that it was from Fred Meyer and probably, I don't know, 100 billion thousand other people have that exact same ring. And so I started looking at other jewelry that is mass-produced and we attach emotion to. So I started collecting rings from pawn shops and kind of looking at the characteristics of this type of fine jewelry and intersecting with it. So this ring appeared to be a giant diamond, but in actuality it's like just a setting with 7 really tiny diamonds in it. It was at the pawn shop for like 7 weeks, and finally the guy told me, "Oh, I'll sell it to you for the price of gold. I will never be able to sell that ring." And so I cast copies of the stone and kind of made it a little bit bigger. This one had a little teeny chip that I don't even know if it was a shaped diamond, so I added on another cast copy of a diamond. This was a wedding set that was sold to a pawn shop, and it had obviously been appreciated by someone for some period of time, and then they didn't appreciate it and gave it up. And so I made this little homunculus coming off the side. And for this ring, I started copying this one. I probably cast, 100 copies of this ring. And as I was copying it, I started thinking about how this ring is actually like, it's a copy of other rings, and all these rings are so similar. And I'm crafting like a copy of something else that's like so generic and so much like all the other types of jewelry. Like from a design standpoint, this ring is not any different from one from Tiffany's, or design wise they're all kind of the same generic gold ring, diamonds, shiny. I love you. And so I started collecting rings from people that I went to college with, family members, and just molding them and casting silver copies of their rings and doing these formations with their stuff. Heart necklaces, another mass-produced I love you item. Actually, this ring that says I love you, I bought that one at a pawn shop too, and it looked like it had diamonds all along the top, but really there was like one little teeny chip in the middle. And another heart necklace breaking down. So that's the end of my BFA work, and when I graduated in 2007, I got a Wingate Fellowship, and where I proposed kind of 2 different things. One, to go to China and research factories and jewelry centers that make this type of jewelry that I'm interested in. And then the second component was to come back to Portland and set up a studio where I could continue to develop my craft. So this is a jewelry center in Guangdong Province, southern China, where wholesalers can go there and choose rings to bring to their shop. And it was this giant room that was lined with these kind of shelves, and each one of these shelves had trays that were filled with waxes of potential rings or jewelry items. These are earrings, and they're all kind of here are rings. They're all like very, very similar with a very like slight twist on the one before it. And so they're cataloged, and they tell the weight, and so you could look through them and kind of decide based on this what you would like to order for your shop. And this particular processing center had these packages of like samples that you could purchase that were, they said they were silver with CZs, but after I purchased them and started working with them, I don't think it was actually, they were actually silver. That's like kind of the final thing that ends up in stores here. So I bought those and I sat on them for like a year and a half until I could figure out what to do with them, and I ended up popping out all their stones, and this image is really crappy, but I haven't had a chance to have it professionally documented quite yet. I mean, these little brooches that are just basically all of those rings, I popped out their stones, soldered them back together, put the stones back in, and had them rhodium plated. And then these went off to a show, and I just got them back. So
What's rhodium plated?
it's a rhodium. I don't really know how to describe it as a metal, but it's a really hard, shiny metal that's used in costume jewelry, and it's very hard, so it's really shiny. Sometimes it's on the outside of white gold. Yeah. And looks better on my computer, but this is another iteration of the heart jewelry, and they are silver cast components that I then hot pink powder coated, and just trying to make like a sexy object. I don't know. So, and a gold one. All right, so prior to going to China, I participated in a workshop in Birmingham, England with designer, jeweler Ted Noten, where he took 10 emerging designers and paired us with 10 heroes who were people that worked in dying trades, that dying or dead trades that are on their way out. For example, I have a little list here. They had a pen maker, a metal spinner, a comb and brush maker, a custom box maker, and a gun engraver. And I decided to be paired up with a drop stamper because it's a process that was used for mass production, so it kind of suited my interests. So I'm going to attempt to teach you about drop stamping, and stop me if you don't understand. But basically, it's where you have a steel plate. It's similar. It's been replaced by hydraulic stamping. So it's where you have a steel plate, and metal, annealed, softened metal is placed on top, and an enormous amount of weight is above it that is held up by a system of pulleys and a motor and human muscle. And so basically they'll put down a piece of metal and then raise it up and let it smash on top of it. And this was a process that was used in the Industrial Revolution to mass produce combs and like the backs of brushes and a lot of different objects. And it's used in jewelry, coin making, St. Christopher medallions. So there it goes. And then these are the swing presses that are used to kind of cut the metal out, somewhat like a paper punch, only for metal. So see him swing it. Here are some other drop stamping plates. This particular place does a lot of work for I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, but they make a lot of like regalia and kind of ceremonial stuff.
Where was this?
Birmingham, England. there are only 6 drop stamping factories left there because of safety regulations. You can't move them, so they have to have existed back then and been continually maintained and ran.
Did you see them make the patterns?
No, at this point they would. I do have images of that, but I didn't include it in this demo. At this point, they outsourced that, but they had machines there that they used to carve in wood something that was 3 times the size, and then trace it, and it would engrave it into metal, like shrink it down 3 times. This is the back of a brush, and this die is actually from the Victorian era. It's not used anymore. These are all of the ones for cutting out the outside. Here's an insignia ring. Engravers love, or it's the start of an insignia ring that would then be cut out and formed. Engravers love stamped metal because it compresses the molecules, so it's a little bit more like butter to cut out. And this is the stamp that, or the die that I decided to have something stamped for my project. We had a week to make something with the drop stamper, and the biggest problem I was running into is that the drop stamper doesn't own any of these dies because of copyright issues. It's owned by whoever's commissioning it. However, I was able to talk them into making those because they're like souvenir-esque and very blank, so the owner might not be able to tell. And I made these brooches that all had different pin backs. Yeah. So I go directly from England to China, and most of the factories that I visited there and processing centers wouldn't allow me to take pictures, but this one that I happened to be able to get into, they really didn't offer tours like some of the other ones. They were a smaller operation, and I happened to be with someone that just like walked us through, and they did a lot of like small components for jeans, purses, you name it. These are their dies. They had in their space 10 water jet cutters set up. They had ordered the first machine from the US and then took it apart and made 9 more copies of this copying machine. And so they made their dies right there. They were super cheap to produce. And this is I couldn't actually like learn very much about like these machines that they were using, but basically they were sitting there and by hand just smashing out little purse components. But so this is in EU, China, where it's like a giant wholesale market, like 23 buildings, all 4 stories high, giant shopping malls, and each one is they're all connected on the 3rd floor by this ladder, so you could walk for a couple miles without leaving any buildings. And each building is kind of dedicated to a certain topic: electronics, jewelry. So I spent most time in the 2 buildings that did jewelry, but it was just like booths full of components, and they were these small little booths. And these are stamped. Some of them are etched brass, but most of them are stamped iron components. So I bought this giant bag of them that has sat in my studio for a couple years now, and I started thinking about how to use them. And so let's see, this is so new that it's hard for me to talk without reading. So I was looking at iron jewelry, Berlin iron jewelry, and it's a type of jewelry that was first, okay, let me just read. So there are 2 phases to iron jewelry. The first, in the early 1800s, by the Prussian royal family, urged all citizens to contribute their gold and silver jewelry towards funding the uprising against Napoleon. And then the second phase, in the early 1900s, was to raise funds for the German share of the First World War. And this was done by exchanging gold jewelry for a little metal or a little iron medallion that said, well, in German, but the English equivalent, "I gave gold towards our defense effort and take iron in honor." And so I was thinking about this Berlin iron jewelry and how not necessarily that this jewelry all relates to war, but more consumerism, and how these individual components were typically gold-plated. And I'm adding things together here, but each of these components would be gold-plated and sold in shopping malls to to Americans or Europeans or Chinese people too, but just sold in shopping malls. And I was just thinking about like what that material actually is and how it's like this really. Am I going over?
No,
That's this really crappy metal that's people are buying. So that's part of the Opulent Project, and this is the beginning phase of that project, which Meg Drinkwater and I started in 2006 when we were still in school, and let me read you our little motto. The Opulent Project. We value a conceptual approach to design and seek to create a dialogue between the precious and non-precious, subverting mainstream preconceptions regarding value in material culture. So this was our first piece, and it was based on silhouettes of royalty jewelry that we had laser cut out of emergency exit signage, and this kind of funded our studio when we first moved in here. We sold these at the Cooper Hewitt and MoMA. This is our mascot, Glinda, wearing the earrings. So these are other things that are kind of along that same, using silhouettes of jewelry that we don't have access to, that belongs to like royal people. This one you can see in the Smithsonian. It's Marie Antoinette's earring. And then this one is one I did this summer. That is, this is a necklace that Princess Di wore to her last gala and sent back to have the earrings commissioned, but tragically was not able to pick them up. So. This is something that actually Megan and I started working on these silhouettes while I was still in China, but kind of threw them to the side, and I just now started playing with them again. It's based on silhouettes of bridal jewelry, and it's kind of interesting how when you break it down into silhouette form, it looks very much the same as royal jewelry. This is Meg Drinkwater for the Opulent Project. She was using images of, I cannot actually pronounce the name of this person, but he was a jeweler for King Louis the something. Let me look. My notes are all out of order. But basically they're silhouettes or they're images of jewelry that no longer exists because of changes in fashion. It was very common to own jewelry for like a couple of years, have the stones remade into something else. And so she was just thinking about how this jewelry only exists in a drawing form that's then been copied. And so she made these resin sketches. Here's another Meg Drinkwater. It's a silhouette with CZs in resin. Color looks really different there. This is also a project that Meg and I did together, where we found a bunch of fluorescent light panel covering in a trash can and made chandeliers, sold at MoMA. This is Leslie Dickerson for the Opulent Project. I forgot to say, the Opulent Project started as a collaborative between Meg and I, and has since then kind of changed into more of a collective, or that's kind of the direction we're trying to take it. So this is a ring that Leslie Dickerson makes that is, she's copying a shadow of a Macy's ring, and then she's kind of thinking about what is the object and what's real versus non-real, and like kind of the ephemeral jewelry or ephemera of jewelry. This is something that I just threw together not too long ago because I was trying to get our stuff into a certain modern art museum in San Francisco, and I was told we only buy jewelry that's made in sets, and I was like, we don't design jewelry in sets, we make each piece individually. And so she was like, well, get back to me when you make sets. So I did a Google search for jewelry sets, and I made a few different versions of jewelry sets, but I haven't contacted her. I don't know if they'll ever go out. This is Berenice Ramirez. She uses very utilitarian materials to make opulent structures. These are made of zip ties that are dyed. This is also Berenice. These are made of foam cord. That's me. That's a version of my little brooch. And then this is a project that Meg and I, we made this a couple years ago as a first attempt for an installation project. It's called &Co, and it's a wallpaper project that is basically a teal panel that has laser cut silhouettes in it, and as people remove them, the pattern kind of emerges. I have the rest of this one installed in the studio, so afterwards you're welcome to come up and take a pair. But we're going to be doing this again at a pop-up shop that's going to be happening in downtown across from Nordstrom in the downsized portion of Banana Republic called Flurry, and that'll open this weekend. And then this is the newest part of Opulent Project. We're doing a collective project called Costume, where we've asked several jewelers to make work that somehow incorporates costume jewelry as subject. And so this is the first piece for it, and it's a brooch. It's a brooch made of bow brooches, and that are all set together with pearls. And we're going to be having a show, or the launch of this project will be first Thursday in December at Tractor, so, in the Everett Street Lofts. Yeah. That's it. So, you guys are welcome to come up to my studio afterwards. I was hoping to have my new little mini laser cutter set up, but I left the cords at my mom's, so it's not set up. But there are other things you can look at. Molds. Yeah.
One just like right.
It's 307.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And at this point, does anyone have any questions? Do you want to do the questions upstairs?
It doesn't matter. Whatever people feel comfortable with. Here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do some questioning.
Questioning.
Well, I have some questions. Back when you were in the, you were showing pictures of the Chinese factory. There were people using hand tools that looked very old. You were talking about these processes that are on their way out. So why do people still use them? Is that because labor is cheaper in China and therefore it's more cost effective, or are there other benefits to these technologies that are on their way out for some reason? Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense to me, but these machines do look pretty old to me. I don't know why they're using them. Because they already exist, so it's like, why would you make a new machine? There's already one there. I honestly don't know.
Are those the ones that cut out, or they're stamping?
They're stamping and like also acting like a giant hole punch and cutting metal out. Not all factories looked like this. A lot of them that I visited were like very new, and people would work inside of a little box so that they were not breathing any of the dust, and the gold was being recollected. I couldn't document them. I could only document this one. And this was also the one that was probably the most rough of all of them. And it wasn't set up to accept tourists,
Right.
you know. So
And so they let you take pictures.
yeah, because it wasn't an arranged visit. It was just like all of a sudden there's this white girl there taking photos. Nobody stopped me. Yeah.
Seems like a lot of your stuff's like handmade, one of a kind type items, correct?
Yeah, there's two sections. Yeah, one of them is mass, or not mass, but pretty much a production line, and the other one is my craft practice. That's
Okay.
one of a kind.
So, in your mass production, how many would you have like at a run at a time? Let's say, like, would you ever go to this extent? Let's say of having something like Nordstrom's comes and says, "We want to mass produce this."
Sure.
Some people are like, "No, I just want to do like that." You know?
No, I would totally sell out. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to pay bills,
Right.
but instead I work day jobs. Yeah, no, I mean, at this point, the Opulent Project has had a few big wholesale orders that kind of paid for our studio for a while, and but I mean, we don't sell to Nordstrom's or places like that, just museum gift stores and design shops. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You said you got it was a fellowship, was it, or a scholarship or something when you went to China? What was that?
It was a Wingate Fellowship. It's an award that's given by the University of North Carolina's Center for Craft, Creativity, and Design, and they award $15,000 to 10 graduating seniors across the U.S. And so that's what paid for China and paid for the bulk of what's in my studio.
How do you see the two sides of your practice intersecting? The tools from one side, say the design side, coming into your craft?
That's the thing that I'm always asking myself, like how these two things relate. But I mean, with my craft practice, I'm drawing a lot from mass-produced items and trying to take these mass-produced things and recraft them. And to divide it in my mind, I've kind of, for crafting, I focus on sentiment, joy that's based in sentiment. And for the Opulent Project, it's more jewelry that's based in luxury. So it's kind of easier for me to think about these two things separately. But, yeah. I don't know if that answers it or not.
So you work with silver a lot. Is there any reason that you like that material specifically?
No, I guess not. I mean, it's just like an affordable material to work with. Yeah, it's easy to cast with. I mean, gold would be easier, but I can't afford it. But no, I don't think about the material that I'm casting it in too much. It's just kind of like the most basic jewelry material.
So kind of play along with the silhouette then? It's more of just like the outline, the basic structure of it then? The material's not as important?
No, I don't think that's necessarily true, because like with some of the royal jewelry, we were looking at we were using reverse engravable plastic that's normally used as emergency exit signage and name tag signage for like the service industry, and then also using fluorescent light panel covering for chandelier earrings. I mean, it was kind of like a visual pun. Yeah.
So what's next?
Good question. I don't know. Graduate school. Yeah. No, I have some objects in mind. I'm starting to think more about objects than jewelry. Yeah. And costume. Yeah. Adjourned.
All right.
So
so much for coming out, and thank you guys for all coming. Next meeting is November 16th, and we have Chance Walty of Fearless Guitars. He is a seeker, a questioner, and tireless experimenter. For more than 20 years, he has utilized guitars and basses as the tools to study organized sound. During this process, he recorded modifications to the tuning setup and construction of the instruments at his disposal, using the same 3 songs for control. In this way, he became very familiar with the variables involved in sculpting a tone. Since the summer of 2005, Chance Walty has run a small, full-service shop called Fearless Guitars, dedicated to the high-quality gear and personal attention to the customer's needs. And you're in room 307?
Yeah, 307.
All right.
Right upstairs.
Do not turn on the lights.
Yeah. Are you coming up?